Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first of an interesting new series of shows that we're putting on through L4G.TV. And this one is called CIA Community in Action. So you might have heard of TED Talks, which is about ideas worth spreading. What this is all about is action that's happening, that's worth replicating and worth duplicating across the country. My name is Chris Ogle, and I've got two guests with me today. I'm very honoured to have two guests with me. So, ladies first, come and say hello, Ross.
Good morning. Hello there.
So we'll come back to you in a second. And the other second guest we've got today is Mark. Come and say hello, Mark.
Good day, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, brilliant to have you both on. So as I say, this is about ideas worth spreading. So I'm not going to be doing a lot of the talking on here because I'm just an enabler here. It's actually you two that have started something which is really pretty good, and it's out there and it's starting to work, and that's the main thing. So Mark, I know it was your original idea. Tell us a little bit about where the inspiration came for this, and what's actually what's happening. What is it?
Yeah, good question. I think this is something that I've just kind of been thinking about for years, maybe putting off doing for years, and that's kind of an interesting part of this, is that I've noticed other people who are interested, they also feel reticent about it, even though they believe it's absolutely the right thing we should all be doing, which I think says a lot about our conditioning maybe in today's world. I always thought that the really most important thing that I got inspired by through all my years of kind of looking at what's working and what's not working in the world, it always struck me as being strange that neighbours didn't really know each other the way I was taught at school, and I was taught in a Christian way, love your neighbour as yourself, for example. When I was a kid, I got that a lot, and I'm not coming from this really from a Christian point of view particularly. I'm coming from this from kind of like interest, but it's really about the right thing to do as human beings, to be there for each other in our neighbourhoods, and it sort of comes up in all the different traditions around the world. What struck me as being lacking, and that was something that I wanted to work on. I've thought about it for a decade or more. And then the other side of it is from a sort of political point of view. I always thought, well, one of the problems of our world is that everything's so centralised, and power is so far away from us, and we exercise our power every 4 or 5 years with a vote, and that's about it, really. I always thought that the two things should kind of go together. Because I found that the politics was could be so divisive, and I felt like actually the way to go is not to forget all the politics. It might be something that inspires us individually, but we're never going to come together on the same political ideas or the same religious ideas, for that matter. But what does bring people together? Helping one another, that we should be looking after our neighbour. It's something that's quite deeply ingrained in us as human beings. And so my reticence has been kind of there because it's not something we do culturally. But when I got started with it, I found that actually there's a real thirst and a hunger for it, and people are like responding to it really well. I was expecting sort of, not such nice responses. I was worried about that a bit. I was thinking, people will go, no, just leave us alone. We all might want to mind our own business, but I've not had that at all. So finally, in the last 6 months, or a few months actually, I've got out there and started to connect with in the neighbourhood that I'm living in here in Norwich, and it's been really great. I've had a really nice response. It's not like we've got thousands of people knocking on my door, which I'm kind of relieved about. But we have got a lovely bunch of really good-hearted, sincere, serious, excellent people who want to see something grow for their future, for their children's future, and also for our older generations' future, because people are lonely and isolated, and there's a real sense that this is something that needs to happen. So those are kind of pushed me in the same direction over the years. All the different things I read in the newspapers, everything pointed at this idea that we should be connecting with our neighbours, rebuilding the community fabric, finding practical ways to help each other, and at the same time, because that should be happening in lots of places, we've got the internet, which allows us to encourage, support, share, collaborate, others, inspire others, and so that we could actually become greater than the sum of our parts and be helping each other across the communities at the same time. So that's what it's all sort of crystallized around those kinds of ideas and that kind of thinking. And Ros here, who's with us today, she's been absolutely brilliant, because I did feel, one of the things that made me reticent was feeling a bit isolated. You know, that's the whole point of this. We need to get beyond isolation. And Ros took it upon herself immediately to respond to this positively, and we've been working together from the very beginning, because she liked the idea and it resonated with her. She'll explain why that was. Same thing in North London, and you know, I'll leave it there. But obviously, there's more to it in terms of where we've got to and how we've done it, and so forth. But that's pretty much why I'm here.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that, Mark. I'm going to come to you in a second, Ros, because actually, in terms of community, and I share your view that community is disintegrated. It's not that we all decided one day that we didn't want community and it was a bad thing. It kind of evolved over time with, if you like, the dissolving of, if you like, big families all living close to each other, which was, if you like, the first community space that we have is our own family. And then the second community space is large companies where people come together and work in the same building for long periods of time, and they form relationships. And to be honest, most of those have gone. And then we had the churches, as you mentioned, Mark. We also had community centres, and we also had pubs, which were spaces where people could, in the community, convene and speak to each other. But all of those things have pretty much disappeared or changed in the way they're viewed these days. And you couple that with the rise of capitalism, which is about individualism and being successful on your own. If you put the two things together, we've ended up where we are. And actually what you're doing there is saying, hang on, we need to go back a bit here. We need to go back and see, because what we've lost is the stuff that actually put everything together in the first place, and we've got to really rebuild that. Some people would say that in Norwich, maybe up north, that may be a bit easier because people haven't totally lost all the community. But Ros, coming to you, you're in North London. How is it different to Mark's experience with you trying to deploy the same kind of strategies that Mark has?
It is more difficult. I found from the beginning that I had to make much more of the effort to get people involved, and it worked. I talked to my neighbours, my immediate neighbours, people across the road, some youngsters. They had children of their own, grown up, and they suddenly realised when I put to them the ideas that came out of this, that we want to get together community-wise, and we want to really get to know our community and the people within it, so that we don't become divided. Political, religion, education even seems to divide us more than it should. And I come from an educational background where I want people to live and work together and just be nice to one another. And several of the people who came back to me said how lovely it was just to get to know people. We started off, as Mark suggested, with the picnic in the park. And we, I suppose half a dozen started to come across. We talked, and then we went to the cafe, and as is my wont, people were talking to us, and I went up to them and said, "But this is what's happening. Would you like to get involved, or would you like to have a leaflet?" Because I had a leaflet explaining what we wanted to do, and it sort of snowballed from there. I think we had probably more than we thought we'd have on that first visit, but obviously being in London, we had parents, we had across the ages, we had some more older people because that's what the area is like. We didn't have too many non-English, but we did have mums with children, and this was great because they were really keen, and we found out that someone 4 doors along didn't know that there was someone with twins on the other side of the road. So we can help them make contact and keep in touch with them. The other thing was that people put notes through my door saying, sorry, I couldn't make the meeting, but that they would like to become involved. And I then ended up having meetings with 2 or 3 people. And I do some voluntary work at the Chicken Shed, the inclusive theatre in North London. And I found out that somebody who wanted to meet me was also a volunteer. So we met there. And from there, it will escalate. And I met somebody else from there who lives in another part of, not far from where I am in North London. And that has started from there. They became interested. I think the main thing for me is that people want to get to know each other in the neighbourhood. They like the fact that they can recognise a face, and they want to see if they can help other people in some way, or that they can be helped. One of our problems is the communication. Most people wanted phone or email. They weren't too used to using Facebook, apart from the youngsters. So our next meeting is likely to be one where we can get youngsters and older people together to show us how to use Facebook and Messenger. That's really what's been happening.
That's fabulous, and it's a really important thing. I mean, this is something that I've picked up, is that there is this huge gap in the we've got busy people who are out working, building families, doing all the wonderful things, and that group is incredibly busy and doesn't really have any time for anything. And at the other end of the spectrum, we've got all these people, these old, more, the elderly side of the population, who have vast amounts of knowledge. Now, they might not have vast amounts of knowledge about modern technology, but they've got vast amounts of knowledge of life. and people. Sorry?
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, and the point is that we're parking these people in places where no one has access to them. It's the most ludicrous thing, and we need. I mean, personally, it's a bit of a crusade, I know, but personally, I think that's a real sacrilege. And what we've got here is groups of youngsters who are. Their parents are too busy for them to be engaging, and that's why the rise in homeschooling is kind of sweeping up, is because people are seeing this is not the right solution. But if we can somehow engage the wisdom of the old with the untainted desires and creativity of the young, perhaps we could create something here that would transcend what we've got, and that's kind of what we need, really. Mark, back to you. Fascinating. Thanks, Ros, for that. Back to you. How did it get started? Tell us the mechanics of this, because that's people want to copy this. They've got to know, haven't they?
Yeah, well, it's just, I mean, I think every local context is different, but at the same time, there are certain things that are totally in common. And I'm not sure if I can say that globally, because obviously you get more diverse the more global you go. But I mean, I think as I said, I was wanting to do this for a long time. I moved to Norwich about 3 years ago. I found myself on a lovely, peaceful, I have to say, peaceful but very quiet street, and there was a sense of friendliness around, but also a sense of like kind of people kept to themselves as well. It was a bit of a combination. There was a sort of a bit more friendliness in a way than you get in London, because people are rushing around London and the scale of it. But at the same time, people keeping themselves to themselves. I befriended a man by chance. He was very warm to me. I was walking along back from work, and he came up to me and said, "Are you all right?" And apparently I'd sighed, and I said, "Well, I think I was sighing because I was tired, but wanted to know if I was okay." Now, this man really inspired me. His name was Malcolm Kett, and he basically, the only time we met was this one conversation, and he'd come to me out of kindness just to interact with me. I walked home. Like he's the great grandson of someone called Robert Kett, who was a very famous man in Norwich who stood up to the land enclosures at the time of the Tudor times, Henry VIII and that. And he was a very fascinating man, this lovely man, Malcolm Kett. And he thought it was a great idea to have a picnic or a big party the next spring, a street party or something. And he agreed with me. We talked about neighbourhood stuff. And I didn't connect with him again. And I kept thinking I must go and connect with him. He was building a boat outside his house. He was in his 80s. Right? He'd spent time. He was an amazing man. Anyway, he passed away about sort of 3 months ago. And I kind of felt like that I was doing it for him in a way. That was the thing that made me say, right, I'm going to do this now, because I felt bad in a way because he was on his own to some extent. I didn't realise that until I met his son, who came over from France. So this is the thing that stimulated me. I wrote a letter to the neighbours and said, there's a lot of isolated people in the modern world. We're all quite busy, but at the same time, we've never had such an opportunity to connect. We have Facebook, we have WhatsApp, we have email, we have all the ways of communicating, and yet we're we're letting each other down. Let's get together and let's just have a picnic. And this was in August. And let's have a picnic and get together. And I delivered this letter with my son to about around 100 homes that were on my street. And at the picnic, we came along and we had a lovely surprise. Good turnout. We had age from 5 and 6, 4 and 5, 8 and 9, 20s, 40s, 30s, 40s, and we had one retired person who came and sat down in the park, even though she wasn't really kind of at that age in her life where that's the easiest thing to do. And we had a lovely time. We had this lovely picnic, and what happened was it was a passion that came out from the youngsters, the 20-somethings, saying, "Yeah, you're so good doing this. It's so brave that you're doing this. It's so important. Let's get everyone on board." Real passion, as you were talking about, Chris. The older folks are saying, "I moved to this street 50 years ago, and when I got here, it was really friendly, and everybody knew each other. Everyone looked out for each other, and people, and kids played outside, and kind of we all looked out for each other. It was a real community spirit. And all the people that were there, who'd originally moved in the 30s, that this lady came upon when she arrived 40 or 50 years ago, they all stayed there all their life, and then they passed away. And then, as those people have passed away, the atmosphere in the community has changed such that it's not like that anymore. And it's really a question of it's to do with how we live today, as you said, Chris, that people are so busy and both people are working, and people are not able, not ready, don't have time, don't feel confident to know each other. So this lady now, she comes home, she's out in her gardening, and she says people come home from work and they don't acknowledge her, they just go into their house. And so she's noticed this massive contrast between what it was like when she moved here and now. And as I've gone further with this and heard back from more people, we've had a second meeting, got a third meeting coming up at the end of the month, which is based on memories of the area. So we're going to have talks about memories of the area from the older generation, and we're having a bake-off for the younger folk to come and bake cakes, and we're using the local community cafe around the corner, which has been offered to us. So there is that sort of thing. So we did the letter. From the letter we had the picnic. From the picnic we set up a WhatsApp group, we set up a Facebook group, we set up an email list. I've got a list of names of who lives where and how old they are, and if they're on their own, and some of them will only be contactable by landline. So I'm making a point of calling them every so often to say how, just to let people know how we're doing. And I'll send some people are saying, we just want a newsletter. This is great. Please keep going with it. And people have been coming out to me in the street. When I've delivered the second one, people coming out to me and saying, "Oh, is you the one that did? That's great. I'm sorry I couldn't come to the first meeting. It's on my fridge." And there's just real enthusiasm for it, even if it's early days. So we've just done the sensible kind of logical thing, I think, really, is this: put a letter around. I phrased the letter quite carefully. I took my time. I'm very specific. This is only about looking after one another, finding practical ways to support each other. And I'm mentioning that others are interested, and I'm mentioning that Ros, for example, in North London, and people were pleased to hear that, and I was really encouraged that people have been pleased to hear that, rather than thinking this is part of another thing. It's sort of it's not quite what we're signing up for. No, people are actually saying it's great because it needs to happen there. They know if they're the sort of people that think it needs to happen here, they're the sort of people that would like it to happen everywhere. So some of them have joined the sort of more central Facebook group that we've got, which is to support individuals who would like to do this kind of thing, which is called at the moment And Beyond, which I think if you can see here. Can you see that sign? I don't know if you can read it properly.
Your local neighbourhood and beyond. Okay.
Yes, that's kind of sort of a working title we have for this at the moment. I mean, and I'm calling it, when I did the first letter, I said what I'd like to do is set up what I called a neighbourhood support network, which I thought, well, that's a phrase that I haven't heard before. It's basically saying what we're trying to do. And then so from that, and one of our people who came to the picnic, who is a very lovely man, he's a primary school teacher, and he said, we were talking about what we should call it, and he said Charles Avenue, which is where we live, Charles Avenue and beyond, and that's a bit kind of Toy Story, isn't it? To infinity and beyond. So there's a bit of fun in there as well. So on that basis, we're just seeing where we go with it, really. one of our, just some of the ideas that have come forward, I'll just share with you quickly some of the ideas that have come from others, because actually what's great about this, I'm an enabler, like you know, and we're all basically enablers in this, we're sort of midwives to it, I think. And so things that have come up, which, you know, other people have suggested, are things like, well, there's got the bake-off and the memories thing, connecting young and old. We've got, a brilliant person who I met with yesterday, actually, she invited me over, who's on our street, and I'd never have guessed it. She's from California, of all places. I mean, I just never have guessed on my street someone from California who works in the tech industry, you know. And she's brilliant, and she wants to do supper clubs. So she's going to do a supper club in January, and my wife and I are going to do it. We're going to start rotating, inviting people to our homes to have food, you know. And another person said, in the summer, make it at different houses, make it charity based, a bit like Macmillan Fund, so people can contribute some money towards a charity of some kind. Coffee mornings, they're standard things, brilliant things, but you know, they're pretty much kind of like obvious things to do, which is great. You know, they're obvious and good. There's nothing complex and scarily sophisticated about this. We just get people together. Share food is a great one. And then other things like, well, who do we know that are trusted providers of services? Like, so everyone wants to know a reliable plumber or a reliable electrician or someone that can come in. Also, what kind of voluntary things are people up for? Are they up for like helping with trips to the shops for people who are getting on a bit and they need to come. They want to go shopping still. They don't want someone to do their shopping for them, but they quite like the company. Or lifting and shifting, moving stuff, or gardening work, or whatever. Different things that people want done. Childcare. But I've you know, basically things like that are emerging from this that people want to do. That seem very sensible. There's more of these ideas, but I can't actually think of them at the moment. But there's the sort of street party. There's basically just finding ways to get together and do social activities together, and making sure we recognise the needs of each other, and we build trust and confidence in what we're doing, and we go from there. So I'm quite interested in educational activities as well. I think it's really important that we get the classroom out of the classroom a bit into the community. I was talking to one of your who does the education projects, Chris. I thought it was amazing.
David Mills, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm quite interested in that, and sort of maybe someone in our neighbourhood might be interested in that too. So, I mean, I could talk for hours about this, but I'm going to stop now. But you can kind of get a general feeling of what we're doing. The only other thing I wanted to say is that the idea of maybe doing something on the same day, at the same time, in different communities, I think that's quite an exciting thing. And Ros and I kind of started with that spirit because we had our picnic on the same day in August last year. Which is how we sort of started, you know, as a sort of, you know, in solidarity, as it were, you know, and so maybe we could do a bit more of that next year and put people on board. I am finding a lot of people sort of liking and sharing posts about this online and wanting to be part of it and coming in and having a discussion about the barriers. I think is quite important because of that reticence and fear that people feel, and sort of saying, well, at least if we've already started it and we've tried it, through that a bit. And Africa told me that in South Africa, where she lived, they already have WhatsApp groups on a lot of the streets because they don't have so much of a supportive state infrastructure. So they need to have these sorts of things in place. It's sort of driven by necessity. And I think that, you know, we're being driven by necessity to some extent, the invention that comes from necessity. But, you know, the more difficult and challenging and less of a safety net you have in an area, the more quickly this sort of thing will happen organically anyway. So, you know, there's that as well. Sometimes we can learn from communities around the world who, you know, on paper would seem to be, you know, I hate this word, less developed than us. I don't agree with that. You know, in a way, developed, but we have other development that we're probably finding. They have a richness and wealth we have where we have poverty and vice versa. So, you know, globally, I think we can learn from each other a lot as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I really have.
One of the things that I mean, it's what we're talking about here is an absolutely massive undertaking, and actually, it's not about controlling it, or it's about just enabling people to share what's going on and get that information out there so that other people can replicate and that we can learn from each other, because there's so much You know, if you take a street, the amount of work that's been put in to collect all the email addresses, to organise these things, and it's a combined effort of everybody playing their part in enabling this to happen. It all shouldn't come down to one dedicated group of people, like you found, Mark, people sort of stepping up and saying, oh, why don't we do this, why don't we do that, and actually taking responsibility for making that happen. And that's really the crucial thing. So Ros, back to you. How have you found what some of the things that Mark has been talking about there? How have you found that rolling out where you are?
I think, sorry, did you want to say something?
Hear properly then a moment, I beg your pardon.
I think that I found people very much like the people anywhere in the UK and abroad have been very welcoming of having such a setup. I couldn't believe that people were so friendly and so keen that somebody just like me or Mark or somebody else has actually taken the time to want to do something for the community. And I think since Brexit and other things like that, it's become even more important, because I had a friend who comes from Albania, and she said for the first time in her life, she felt afraid in this country. And she lives, 3 miles up the road. And she said since then, she has felt afraid and she doesn't know why. So I think this is the thing, that if we can get people together and just seeing somebody on the street and saying hi. If you haven't got time, you don't stop. If you feel that you want to chat, then you can. But it means people feel happier, they're safer, they can recognise somebody. And one person, I knocked on a door because I wanted to put the note through. I hadn't seen her. She said, it's great to think that we can have a group where if you need to, in an emergency, you have somebody you can call on that you know, not just your next door neighbour, which obviously sometimes you can, but just other people in the street that you would know if they weren't available. And it's things like this that are coming out. And again, we're getting this sort of education coming in, second language speakers. Somebody wanted to set up a project to help, because this isn't being done now. And we're having more people coming into the community with children. Where can they access extra help and support? And to know that there are people around where it can be done. This is what people were saying was good.
Fabulous stuff, you know, not soon enough really to have these kind of initiatives, because I've been like you, Mark. I've been thinking about this for 5 or 6 years, and actually the level of what this is, which is at the absolute grassroots street level, it's something that every single person is capable of doing. So how can people who say, you know what, like me, for example, I know that where my mum lives, when we were growing up there basically it's 18 houses in the close. And what's happened is I think that my mum and one other person in the street of those 18 are the same people that originally bought those houses when they were put up. Everyone else has either died or they've moved on. But as that happened and the replacement people came on, the community essentially disintegrated, and there is absolutely no conversation with anybody in that street, which is incredibly sad, because all the people that I grew up with, like 8 or 9, 10 kids playing games in the street and everything else, all of that's gone. In fact, you can hardly get up the road for cars, to be fair. But the whole essence of that, of what I remember, is removed and gone, and it's time to put it back. But it's got to be at this level, hasn't it? It's got to be at the street level. You can't really do it any other way, because it involves every single person in society, and that's basically all of us. So how do people get hold of a copy of your letter? How can they register that they're interested in taking it forward? What's the process they can go through?
Okay, well, on Facebook, I know not everyone uses Facebook, but if you are on Facebook, you need to search for a group called And Beyond, and you should find us there. If you can't find us there, then I think just, I guess go through Link for Growth, right? I mean, if someone pings over to you, Chris, you can ping them over to me. I mean, I'm happy to give my email address or that, but it's a bit cumbersome on a screen to do that. But really, I think that we should probably have an easier way, because this is the first time we've done this kind of. It's really, kind of, we haven't really got that sort of clear yet in terms of reaching out.
Well, there's always, people can always go. I mean, as you know, as we've spoken, Link for Growth has been in existence for some time. So if people do connect and they say, we want to do something like what Mark was talking about and beyond, how do we go about doing that? We've got central resources on Google Drive. I can take stuff that you've created, stuff that other people have created. We can make it available. We can share the links. There's loads of ways to do that. It's really just about making sure that people get excited about this and say, yeah, me too.
Hi.
I've just checked online, and Beyond at the moment is a closed group. So I'm going to make it into an open group, I think, because I think the local groups need to be closed. But the sort of bringing people together more kind of at the macro level should be open, because I mean, obviously there's issues. I mean, this is obviously we've faced challenges with this in terms of really we are ice breaking. I mean, your conversation about your point just now about your mum's situation. There needs to be an icebreaker. I think in every community there's probably more than one potential. There's probably plenty of potential icebreakers in every community. And once one of those icebreakers realizes that's what they want to do, they then will reach out, and other people who are ripe, other people who are thirsty for this, other people who've realized this or realized it when they get the message, will be there for them, be there with them, and they will connect. And not everybody will come forward. And in a way, that's a good sign, because we are a mixture of motivations in our society, and there are people, who've got, unfortunately, they've got kind of problematic motivations, and we want to protect ourselves from. At the same time, we are inclusive. So, good people will come forward. Good people will recognise what we're doing, and because we're doing it on a very apolitical level. It really is clear that we're there doing this for each other, and so we can kind of recognise. I think we can recognise each other, and then come to And Beyond on Facebook. Go through Chris, or come find me. My name is Mark Barrett. You can find me on Facebook, and you can just find me there, and you'll see it's me because of the posts. That's BARRETT. You can find us. You'll find us if you want to find us. You'll find us, those icebreakers are really that's what it's all about, really. I think, and then by doing that, you start to get a feeling of potential and possibility, and the barriers come down. And I really, really want to echo and amplify what Ros was saying earlier on about how it makes such a difference. I mean, the lady that came to the picnic, she said to me, I knocked on her door about a week and a half later on my way back from work. I wouldn't have been able to do before because I didn't know she existed. I didn't know what her door was. I didn't know her situation, but I did now because she came to the picnic. Knocked on her door. I was really pleased to see me. She told me I was great. I went to the bus stop the other day, and I could say hello to who's 5 doors down from her, who she had no knowledge of before, and she felt good because she knew someone, and she didn't know anyone. She was the one who said, "I don't know anyone anymore. I used to know everyone." And now she knows people. So and the people who are feeling vulnerable and isolated because of their background. Migrancy background, age background, benefiting instantaneously once you get people together. So, that's a very important point, Ros, that you made there, which I didn't mention before, and I wanted to say, I've experienced the same thing here. So, get in contact, and also, even if you're not sure yet, get in contact, because what I've noticed is lots of people have liked the idea, the grouping, and they're kind of taking their time to sort of put their foot in the water, and that's fine. It's not something that, everyone is ready to do, and they need to be ready, but they may want to do it, and they have an ambition to do it, an aspiration to do it, but they need to find the way that's right for them, their entry point. And I think by coming together and sort of sharing our stories, that entry point becomes clearer to people. And it starts with, I started, before I even wrote the letter, I have to say, I started with the odd conversation with people I already knew and said, thinking to do a project in the neighbourhood.
I think that's a really important point, isn't it? If you can get to it.
You turn it into a system too easily, and actually it should be about continuing to do the good stuff that some of us are already doing, but just using the tools that we have of communication and the abilities we have to sort of organize ourselves a bit better, so that it's not just kind of drops in the ocean, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point you made there, is that you actually don't have to do it on your own. If you know 2 or 3 people who want to do it together, it actually doing it as a little team makes it much easier indeed. Ros, so back to you. You had some things to say earlier.
I was going to say that we had it is working across the borough as well as in the street. I'm in a particularly excuse me, interesting position where my road wasn't as long as Mark's, so I went into the end of the road and round the corner, and it means that people are able to take it into a road and further and beyond. We've already got someone interested in part of another part which is next to, it's not far away, and a young girl has taken up with her friends the idea of setting up a community group of some kind, and theirs is a beyond group as well, and she's taken it on, but it's slightly different people who belong, because they are of a different generation and they are spread around more of the Enfield borough, really. So perhaps eventually each one of those might even take up their own streets. We don't know.
I think that's an important point you make there. Different people are going to want different things from this. So there are people who just want to know their neighbours and have a more pleasant existence, and there are other people who feel vulnerable and want the lift to the hospital. There are other people who are building a business and they want to make more connections in the local area. Whatever it happens to be, there's all sorts of different needs. But by the whole community pulling together and working together, of course, they can all be serviced. It's just a question of just don't like you said, Mark. Let's not be divisive with politics. Let's not be divisive with religion. Let's play this game at the human being level, because the only thing that pulls us all together is we're all humans. There's no other unifying feature that we've got except we're all part of the same race.
That's right. I think what I find really interesting is, because I was thinking about what Ros is saying about this other grouping that's formed, or that's more of a borough-wide thing, and with the and beyond idea. So it kind of Enfield. I don't know if it's called this, but it's like Enfield and beyond, effectively. And I was thinking, well, yeah, because we've got the and beyond that's sort of level of it, where it's like joining. We're potentially a global. We are global people. I mean, that's what we are, really. We're human beings. We're earthlings, or whatever you want to call it. We're all here on one planet, and so we can use the internet to connect across without any country barriers. At the same time, we can use the internet to kind of ourselves at the nation level, potentially, or the township level, or the borough level, or all of these things can be done. And so I'm probably thinking I will probably try and get a Norwich meeting in the early part of next year, because other people have come forward to me and they're based in other parts of Norwich, or they're in Lowestoft, or they're wherever. So we'd get like a Norfolk level or something, and then by doing that, we can then sort of say, right, we can have that platform at that level, and people can be drawn in and then think, how am I going to do it on my street? In the same way, someone in Seattle is talking to us, or Seattle, or how can I do it in Cape Town, or how can I do it in London, London or Brighton or wherever. We can have that sort of macro level at different coming in at different scales. For me, though, concern to protect in that is that it is about a local neighbourhood, because there's plenty of platforms for people to join and talk online about politics, society, goodness, spirituality, religion, all sorts of things, on whatever scale they want. There's plenty of that. The uniqueness about this that we're doing is, as you've said, it's like the street level. It's about everyday life, where we reside, and the call to be a good neighbour, and create these sort of like I consider like almost a cellular, like goodness, cells of goodness in our local area. That's so all of the platforms are great to bring people together at different levels. and so that we get more empowerment and more encouragement and more inspiration and more information, so we can do what we should be doing. So yeah, that's really encouraging, I think.
I think developments are happening. Developments are happening because I have a friend in France who asked how she could find out more information for a local area, for the mayor of the area, but it's a very small locality, and she said it sounds a great idea for them. So anyone can come in and start thinking about how they would do something at their level, because they know their area more than we do. We can't dictate anything. It will just grow.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely right. You can't with any community. It can't be prescriptive. It's almost chaos theory. So, yeah, discussions about how are we going to organise ourselves in a new era where it's community focused or community driven. The answer is we just don't know, because we've never been there before. We've never had the internet. We've never had the communities. We've had capitalism. We've had what we've had. But actually, for the last 70 years, 80 years, it's been like it has been. Actually, if we move into a new area, post-capitalism, whatever you want to say, where actually we're creating a new set of leaders who are people there to serve the community, we have no idea what that's going to look like. So to try and put things in place for what that might be is just a complete waste of time in many respects.
Yeah.
That's right. I think our role is to just remind people it's about the neighbourhood. It's about the neighbourhood, and see where people go with that. Yes, it's about the neighbour. It's about people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. People in relationships. There's nothing else, is there, really? If you want any proof of that, go to a funeral and see who's talking about money.
Oh.
Yeah, they're all talking about people and relationships, and that's the end of it. So
Chris, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
If I send you over some contact details, because I'm on my phone here, are you able to put them up on the screen or something?
What I can do is add them to the notes in the YouTube, so that people and put them along with the posts. So if you make them available to me, I'll make sure that we share them out.
Because there are documents that we've both used that people might find it difficult to put down. They could use ours as a template and take it according to what they want to do, can't they?
Absolutely right. That's the important thing, is to make the documents available in a central place so that people can download them and use them and change them how they want to use them. Okay, any last comments, Mark, before we close?
I just think let's just remember this extraordinary time we're in. We've got what I consider to be a tool that we've been waiting eons for, in the form of the internet. It's like a kind of weapon that's not violent. It's like a way of we can connect ourselves, and be strong together through the internet and achieve something that we never possible before. But the main thing about all of this is the thing that we've always been called to do, and we've always been able to do, which is to work and support our neighbours. We've always been able to do that. So let's not forget that's what we should be doing.
Fabulous. And Ross, last comments from yourself?
That's fine. It's just great to be able to meet with people, someone from outside, and get your ideas out there, and to discuss. And while you're discussing, you're obviously formulating ideas as well, which all helps. By talking with someone outside and seeing what's happening, it helps us to formulate the future, really, and how the ideas of how we think we might go forward, in encouraging more people to become involved.
Brilliant, fabulous. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on and sharing where you've got to so far and the experiences you've had, because we just can't do enough of the connecting with local people. There's just we've got to start again, because we've basically lost it all, especially in the southeast. It's probably at its worst in the UK, here in the southeast where I am too. So it's a big job ahead. But if we all do our little bit each, actually we're the only we're the only resource that we've got that's big enough to sort this out is us, the community. So it's down to us at the end of the day, and best foot forward, really. So this show will go up on YouTube. I've set up a playlist for it. We will put it onto all the different platforms so that everyone can take a look. And if you want to get hold of Mark, his details will be there, or Ross, or myself, and we'll just help get things moving for you if that's what you want to do. So thank you once again, Mark.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for, making it possible to have this great conversation and have it recorded.
Fabulous, you're welcome. And thank you, Ross, for joining. I know you're off to Windsor this afternoon, but
you have a lovely day. Have a good day.
Okay, so thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, do get in touch with people who've been on the show, and let's go forth and build community. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.